Hi, this is Brother Barnes, and I'm doing a density lab report, and this might be called Draft 3. I'm going to go through and enlarge some of the fonts. I want this to be somewhat of a narrative. I think that on the title page, introduction and hypothesis, materials, data, let's keep going, outliers, discussion, that's pretty texty, isn't it? Sources cited. I want this to read somewhat like a narrative, like a story, I think. I am not a scientific research writer, and so I think that what might suit me and you very well for an English class or a speech class or computer concepts class might be to make a presentation that is understandable to anyone who looked at it. And so that may be my goal. I've got a few corrections to make as I go along. This may take a few minutes, but it's possible that some of you kind of need to watch the process of editing. Maybe. Anyhow, if not, I probably could use some pointers from you. Anyhow, let's get started and see what we can get done here. This is the density lab report in Excel. Wanting to make a lab report that can be a turn-in on its own. Number one, density of wood lab report needs to be far larger than that. It could go across the whole entire page. That's possible. But that's easily readable, isn't it? Another thing that I wanted you to notice is I had written team member 234 down here, but the truth is, let's go to the data collection. There were actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 7 people that contributed to this. So I think that I should go back and let's duplicate this right here. Let's copy that and let's paste it again. Okay, that was really not exactly what I was hoping for. What size font is that? That's 14. So let's bring everything back to 14, and I don't really think I need those bolded either. And possibly it would be nice to maybe not overdo the bolding, maybe. All right, so we got a team member 5, all right, a 6, and a 7. And there was actually a team member 1, wasn't there? And I'm just kind of like the person putting this report together. All right. To be announced. Okay. At some point, I probably will do a rubric and want my students to do some of this, but I haven't decided how much of this. This is quite extensive. I've spent a lot of time working on this. Density of wood lab report. Okay, let's go to introduction and hypothesis and see what we think about this. A large heavy object may be light, such as a big piece of styrofoam. Lead may be small. I don't know if this would help, but I'm going to say elemental lead. That kind of is confusing. It looks like the word lead, doesn't it? Elemental lead may be small, but due to its compact nature is heavy. Yeah, a feather is not very dense, but a coin is dense. Density is a property of matter that relates to its mass and volume. Density is a derived unit since it is made of 2 fundamental units, mass and volume. Hypothesis. If water is 1 gram per cc, then we expect the density of wood to be less than 1 gram per cc since it floats in water. Measurements in grams and dimensions measured were used to determine the mass and volume and thus the density through calculation using Excel formulas. Okay, that might do. Let's keep going. Let's go to materials, method, procedure written in past tense. Okay. The mass of wooden blocks was measured in grams on a top-loading electronic scale, and the volume was approximated by measurement in centimeters of the three dimensions of volume: height, width, and depth with a metric ruler. I had thought about putting some captions about these, but I think this is kind of self-explanatory. I think I'm going to add a little bit here, though. I do have some additional input that I want. Students recorded individual data, and the lab instructor, me, input the data into this spreadsheet. Isn't that kind of weird that was completely done to COVID-19 procedure? Okay. Isn't that a weird thing to have to put into a document? Because normally I would have the students input the data into the document as we looked at it as a class. Now, here's another thing that I want to make sure that we get in here, is we can spell check this. I figured out how to do this. Go to review and spelling, and it says spell check complete. You're good to go. Very good. That makes me happy. So we got that done. Simply marvelous. Before I forget, I want to go over to discussion, and there's something on the numbered blocks that needs to be clarified. Okay, the teacher, me, should have logged the numbers of each piece of, I don't want to say logged, okay, recorded. Let's clarify. Here's the deal. There was one measurement, and I stated this before, but I'm going to just show you one more time. There was one measurement, this 0.37, that when you look at the dimensions input 8, 7.7, and 7.5, that tells you that was almost a perfect square. And if you look back at the blocks, there is not a perfect square in this picture. These are all cut 2x4s, and these are thin as well. There was not anything that was a square. So I was trying to clarify over here in the discussion. I was trying to explain that. Okay, there were no pieces of wood measured that were a near perfect square. The teacher, me, should have recorded the numbers of each piece of wood for each wooden block for each lab participant beforehand. But did not. It sounds like something I would do. It's my fault for sure. The 0.37 gram per cc measurement is likely an error in measurement. And it might be that, could we bring this down? I think I want the discussion on the 0.37 block to be separate. Okay, I made that bigger, but it doesn't need to be bigger because there's not enough room on that page for it to be bigger, is there? May have to bring this down. Okay, let's select this whole page, or not all of it, just the text, and let's bring it down to maybe 12. Let's do that. Okay, I'm going to come back later to this, but that was one problem that I had earlier, and I needed to make sure that I got that done, because once I get everything else in shape here, I may be ready to call this a third draft. I might be. I've worked on this for days now, and I'm happy to, because it likely will help someone along the way. Hope it helps you. All right, so we've talked about the introduction. We've gone to materials, method, procedure. A little bit sketchy, but it's not a very difficult, not a very difficult project, really. Okay, let's go to data and analysis. Here's the data, and there were some formulas used here, as you can see. Data with dates of collection, calculations, analysis, plot best fit. Okay, this is not, doesn't really, a regression does not really work here. But let's get rid of this. Data with dates of collection and analyses. Is that plural? Is that correct? Let's check that. Now that we know where the spell check is located. Bam! Holla. That's awesome. Okay. So, let's say the data at the top left was collected on 7/13/2020, and let's go ahead and specify that formulas were put into E2 and F2. All right, formulas were placed in cells E2 and F2 to calculate volume and density respectively. Okay, and then on the right, to the right, is a box plot representing the density data from column F above, and to the left is a tool pack analysis. Let's go to that real quick, and because there's something else I want. Let's go to data for a second. It's a data analysis, and it was descriptive statistics. It was this one. Okay, let's cancel that. A descriptive statistic done, not sewn, done in Excel tool pack analysis. Performed, done. I guess done's okay. All right. To the right is a box plot, and to the left is a descriptive statistic done in Excel tool pack analysis of the same data. Data. Let's make this a little bit bigger. I'm running out of room here. It's probably not a great idea to just jam and cram stuff like I'm doing, but I've spent a lot of time on this already. Let's go to review and let's do a spell check. Good, and let's hit file and save it real fast. Remember to do that always. And I'm at 15 minutes on this. Okay, let's move on a little bit because this is probably about as descriptive as I need. The outlier boundary. All right. I really would like to have a bit of a description of what this is all about. What is an outlier? And what's an outlier boundary? How about if let's try this. Let's make this chart. Can I grab a hold of this? There we go. There we go. There we go. There's not a lot of room here. Okay, let's make this even smaller because really I'm just targeting these two numbers right here. Let's put a little text box. Let's go home. No, let's go to insert and let's do a text box here. I'm going to do a little text box here. All right, let's try to explain what this is all about. Outlier boundaries are important to determine whether all of the data in a calculation is appropriate. In other words, does it fit? Outlier boundary is important to determine whether all of the data in a calculation is appropriate. And let's say something like, let's say, calculations were done on this page and results are included in the discussion. So there is a place for that. All right, good enough. I'm going to do a little spell check there. Let's hit it. Good. Okay, good deal. All right, let's go to the next page, which is a little bit scrappy. Why did I do this page? All right, let's do another little insert. Let's do a text here and explain this. And this is actually included possibly in the discussion. As I was investigating accepted values for density of wood, I found a website which published values in, oh boy, this is crazy, 1,000 kilogram per meter cubed units. I wondered if this was the same as grams per cc. I did a dimensional analysis and determined that the units were the same. All right, good enough. Let's get a 14 on that. Most of the stuff, if we've got room, we're trying to run with a 14. Let's do a spell check on that real fast. Well, there's another spell check there. Okay. All right, good enough. Let's do that. All right, let's go to discussion and conclusion. I think I'm about done with this page here. Discussion and conclusion. The experimental average density for the blocks of wood measured was 0.5 grams per cc. Water has a mass of 1 gram. This explains the ability of wood to float in the water. The hypothesis that wood has a density less than water was upheld by our data. The density of wood data was calculated using formulas in Excel. A whisker plot revealed the grouping of the data and gave numbers which could be used in an outlier boundary calculation. Additionally, the density data was analyzed using the Excel analysis tool pack. The analysis of the tool pack agreed with the whisker plot data on comparable statistics. For example, mean in one analysis was the same as in the other. Okay, well, I think I'm going to make this yet smaller so that I can fit this on the page. Let's go down to 12. I thought I already fixed that. Okay, that did not help me at all. Let's go down to 11. There we go. Isn't that interesting how much of a difference that makes? All right, because I want to get some separation when I talk about the outliers. It was determined that the 0.72 gram per cc density and the 0.37 gram per cc density were outliers. The 0.72 value is not considered error since it is composed most likely of oak or some other hardwood. The article wood density lists the density of oak to range from 0.6 to 0.9 or 1,000 kilograms per meter cube, which I checked by dimensional analysis to be equivalent to gram per cc with red oak listed, which is about the same value determined experimentally in this trial. White pine is listed with a density of 0.35 to 0.5. Fine. The experimental density of 0.37 grams per cc does fit into this range, but I think it is an error since the measurements represent almost a perfect square. There were no pieces of wood measured that were a near perfect square. The teacher, me, should have recorded the numbers of each wooden block for each lab participant beforehand, but did not. The 0.37 gram per cc measurement is likely an error. The average density in the experiment was 0.5 gram per cc. Is a little high if only pine was considered. It is the data from the piece of oak that elevated the average a bit above the median, which was 0.48 grams per cc. The hypothesis that wood has a density less than water was therefore upheld by our data. Okay, now let's hit this with a grand spell check. Let's go with review and spell. Okay, lovely, lovely. All right, let's go to sources cited. I did pick MLA here. We did have a problem formatting this. I never did figure out that, and I'm not in the mood right now. Let's do a spell check there. We're good to go. Okay, I think that is going to be what I'm going to call draft 3. I think we have done a good job. I think we have a density title page. We have an introduction. We have materials. We have data and analysis. Can I click out of here? Okay. And I'm going to change this little doodad here, and I'm going to put this over here. I don't really know if I like that a lot, but I'm going to do it. I don't like this date here. Data and Analysis Density Lab. All right. I don't think I can move this chart right here. I think I've already anchored that down. That's about as good as I can do on this page. Let's go to the Outlier page. Very good. We're good here. Density unit, I think good here. And then lastly, discussion. We're good there. And then sources cited. Okay, that is a 25-minute third draft. Let's hit save and say that we are happy with that for now. Thank you. Keep up the good work.